Hey, everybody. In the words of Bruce Buffer, we are live. Live. Restore the Republic. Today, I'm with Soil Jurisdiction Sheriff Adam Bonner on the unincorporated Summit County, Ohio. I am Andrew Ike, Sheriff of the unincorporated Richland County, Ohio. And how you doing, Adam?
Excellent. How about yourself?
Doing good. Doing good. It is Saturday night. Just kind of going off script tonight a little bit, talking about a few things that have been bugging me. And, it should be bugging everybody. I mean, these things are just getting out of hand, getting a little crazy, and just trying to rein people back into what we're doing, what we're trying to strive for, things like that. So we're going to start off with pretty much on social medias. Everyone is noticing and talking and putting on social media a lot of stuff about the birth certificates, about the fraud, about these corporations, about trusts, UCC claims. Everybody's trying to find their remedy in all this. They think it can be done. And over and over and over, they put it on there. And I just want to tell them, hey, when are the people going to realize that you can't get remedy in those courts, right?
Well, maybe a few years back, it seems like due to social media, everything that we're hearing and seeing, they're hearing and seeing also. In fact, they have people that they delegate, whether it be in the municipalities, the police department, sheriff's departments, you name it. They got people watching just as we are.
Yeah.
So it would be very easy then to combat against any information that might be useful, while filling out your court paperwork or trying to get your remedy, citing all of the pertinent information and things, maxims of law, those types of things, canons. And then you go into these administrative tribunals and, well, it's a joke to them because what are you going to do to them? They'll push a panic button, right?
Yeah.
So, when you're going into something like that that's already stacked against you from the inception of whatever they file against you, there's already bonds that have been made. They're already being sold. They're already in play. And if you're starting in a lower inferior like municipality, they're selling that information to the federal district courts. They're selling that information to the superior courts. And so on up to the Supreme Court. So they know about you well before you get there. In fact, they've been profiting off of the compounding interest from those bonds daily. So, of course, they don't want you to come along and shut them down, with the jurisdictional claim or challenge or any of those types of things. And you can challenge jurisdiction anytime you want. I guess realistically, it depends on how you handle and present yourself. We're not representing, we're presenting.
Yeah.
And, as long as you keep your terminology tight, you might be able to get somewhere, but it's not even 50-50 at this point in the game. So I don't know. I wouldn't waste my time. That's a commercial jurisdiction that we are not in. We shouldn't be delving in it. I would prefer just to arrest those bad actors and get them out of the way because they're acting as pretty much domestic terrorists against Americans.
Yeah.
It's funny because how many times over the past, say, 4 or 5 years have you heard them blaming people who know who they are, challenging them on things that have been done against them, and then they say that they're paper terrorists.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so convoluted and nonsensical.
It is. None of it makes sense. And what really amazes me, how a lot of people, they're not grasping what's going on here. It's almost like they want to try to break that shell, but they're too big. They're too, it's so corrupt It can't be done. That's why we as Americans have to set up our assemblies, in the counties, in the state, and that's what Ohio has done, so, we're working on our counties. Other counties around the country are doing the same thing. And that's where we'll find our remedy, in our common law courts. That's the only way I see it.
You're supposed to be able to invoke common law into your case through these administrative tribunals, and they're just not allowing it, because of internal policies, their processes and procedures that are not law. These are legislative courts. Make no mistake about it, they are not lawful courts. They're just not. I mean,
yeah, I've tried to explain that to some people how, okay, they legislate these statutory laws, and people don't realize they are our employees. They're our subcontractors. So why would you let your subcontractor make laws for you? It's like, come on, people.
Well, I mean, they're depriving you of your rights. Anything that they're creating, and then also turning around and creating protections for them so you can't go after them. You have to ask for permission to sue them. Of course, they're going to say no. And then, they're going to argue with you that, oh, you're not a licensed bar attorney. Well, I got news for you. There's no such thing as a licensed bar attorney. Okay. They got a dues card, with their number on it. Let's just put it this way. Somewhere in a law book, it says that you cannot license or prohibit the practice of law. And I'm sure there's some case law on that too. Now, these ALJs will argue that, that's old, that's out of date. Well, it's a precedent. It's stare decisis. It's already been ruled and decided. So I don't need your interpretation because you don't like what I just said. And that's not how that works. So anyhow, they just, it turns into, where you argue with them, and then they play all the jurisdiction games to claim they have jurisdiction. There's so much deception and fraud that goes on, and crimes are being committed by these so-called lawful people, that are operating in the eyes of justice. It's ridiculous. I mean,
I heard one time, I wish I would take the time and look into it. I heard that the bar has it's either their creed or their code where no fact or evidence will be tried in courts. When the people hear that, it's like, come on, use your brain here, put it together.
Yeah. So to kind of, stack onto that is, Bill of Rights, constitutionally protected and guaranteed rights that they took an oath to support and uphold. All that stuff goes out the window, because if you don't know who you are and you don't know a little bit about that system and how it works, they're going to get you every time. And let's just point out that 99% of the time, if not just straight up 100, you're being under threat, duress, and coercion. If you read all of their paperwork, their summonses, all of the things that they send, one word doesn't just have one meaning. There's multiple meanings behind, their word salad game that they play. And if they actually do properly serve you and give you due notice, which most of the time they skip steps. So you're telling me out of the 30 steps it took to get that paperwork in a mailbox that belongs to my administrator, that you followed every single step before you threatened me to show up and appear for a general appearance. And then you get there and it's like, okay, well, you're here. It's a general appearance. We have personal jurisdiction. No, you don't. Not when you broke the law and you threatened somebody to be there and they're under duress. And then when they make that challenge, they just completely ignore it because you're there. They push that red panic button. You're getting jumped on.
Well, you know what? I think the people in general around this country pretty much know, that word salad, legalese, the legalese that they use in there, the language, words mean certain things, and I think people are starting to catch on to it. And it's just, it's really crazy, but more people should look into it, Definitely.
Absolutely. It starts there. I mean, for me, I just happened to be reading through some manuals and, trying to learn my job and be efficient at it. And, those are technically inspectable items, and you have to know what is involved in those manuals. You could get checked at any point in time by your leadership. They can come out of nowhere and just, hey, site blah blah blah, go. Well, if you're not prepared, you're going to get yourself in trouble, and it's just not worth it. So you study the stuff until you memorize everything that you can possibly memorize, and everything else. Another inspectable item is your notepad, which I used to keep in my shoulder pocket. And anything I needed that, for whatever reason I couldn't memorize, I would just pull that out and I have my notes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you would end up running into those type of situations where you're talking about different types of persons, legal versus lawful, admiralty and maritime versus soil. We just got into so many different things.
Oh, they have put such a, I'd love to have one of these lives where we just talk about this legalese, some of these words, the black magic they use in the courtroom, it's like an act, the judge is in there in a robe. They have to summons you. We all know this stuff. Well, most people do. And
well,
it's literally crazy,
You don't summons the living, you summons the dead.
Yeah.
And when I say dead, I mean your, legal fiction, the all caps name, one of your all caps names, because, it just depends, if they're doing maritime, they might use one version of it, and then in the maritime side, they might use a different variation where they might put your last name first, middle initial, first name,
Yeah.
And so, you got to really watch that. And a lot of times when you shut them down on 2 or 3 of those, then they'll come back with some other variation that they created. And it's just a big game to them. They just keep creating more legal fictions.
Yeah.
So you just got to shut all that stuff down. And, that's not who I am. That's not me.
Well, bottom line is I think that we have to get the people in every county, every state of the union to start realizing you're not going to get remedy. That's what I feel. You're not going to get remedy in them courts. In the C jurisdiction, administrative courts, it's just not happening. So instead of wasting time in there, join your assemblies, get your common law courts started. And, first of all, you got to change your political status, become American again. And then we take the reins over. We start doing what's right.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got roughly about a 2 to 5% chance of getting something done. And that's if you're following their paperwork, using their paperwork, and playing their securities fraud game so they can profit off of you. And then by the time you get before a magistrate or an administrative law judge, if you're challenging anything that makes them look bad, chances are they're just going to dismiss it. They'll listen to you. Some of them will just sit there and patronize you, and then they'll dismiss it. So,
well, they have a 98% conviction rate, and that's for a reason. That's deals with that CRIS system, which, man, we could go into that at another time for hours. That is something that'll blow your mind away.
Yeah, that's why the family courts are so corrupt, is because the big majority of the profits that they make from that all go into that CRIS system or their retirements. There's kickbacks that go to attorneys based on performance in cases. They flop on you on purpose. You're paying them thousands of dollars because, your life's on the line, your liberty, your freedom. And they go into these places and allow all types of just criminal activities happen to you, violations out the wazoo. And when you challenge them on it, nothing happens. They don't get in trouble. I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of the bar associations in the majority of the counties, they're not open to the public. You can't just go into these places. A lot of times they'll say that they're they're not doing business for the public and everything that they do is internal. Well, how do you make a complaint for unethical conduct or something of that nature? And a lot of times they'll claim, oh, well, you got to go through the court. No, that's just okay. So I just got violated. My rights got violated in the court, the same very place. Now you're telling me to make a complaint. I have to go through the same people.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen there? Nothing. They don't even make complaints when they know unethical conduct happens.
Yeah.
They might witness it daily, hourly, and they still don't make complaints because they get so many strikes and they're not bondable. And they know it. So, or they'll get put out of a job. Judges, magistrates threaten them. So, I feel bad for the clerks. This is how your system treats you.
Yeah. One big show, man.
U.S. citizens should
go
be
on.
I was going to say, yeah, U.S. citizens should be pretty upset, with how their de facto government is treating them, how their foreign subcontractor agents are violating their rights daily, and they're just allowing it to happen. I'd be pretty mad if I was in that jurisdiction.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what. Over the years, I have been very, very mad, and that's when I finally woke up and was like, okay, there's something better than this. And that's when I started looking into the political status changing and stuff. And, I didn't know it, but I wasn't an American. I was a U.S. citizen, which, you have no rights. We all know that. So another thing that blows my mind, once people start figuring this stuff out, okay, you're a U.S. citizen and you don't have rights, and just go into court and you'll see. Come on. Doesn't this stuff register, or don't you want to be an American again and have property, you can own property and stuff? And
yeah, it really
fuddles me. I get so messed up. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the indoctrination, it starts from when you're a little kid, and it goes through the public education system. By the time you're an adult, you're somewhat an adult, 18 years old. You're so indoctrinated and so scared that if you do anything wrong, you're going to be punished, jailed. I mean, they really put the fear into you. And that's because, they don't know about us putting the fear of God into them for doing it. So the sooner they stand up and realize something's wrong with that system, the whole thing is just based on fraud and deception, the better off they're going to be, and there's no way out. There's no way out of that unless if you go through. There's no way around it, under it, over it. You got to go straight through it. That's the only way to face anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading on that thought. I was reading something today about your estate, what happens after you die or something. And it said something about they have like 2 to 3 years to cash before them bonds, all the bonds that are involved with your straw man and stuff. And I was wondering if a family member could go in there and take care of those bonds, buy it, have them get them bonds back.
Well, that would be delving into trust law and estates and stuff like that. And yes, it can be delegated through trust, to your kin. That is possible. Those trusts typically are, they're open for 99 years. That's why they do their damnedest to try and kill us off before we're 99, because that's more money for them to get their hands on. So that's the name of the game, So, food poisoning, every day, outdoor activities, you don't realize you're inhaling things that have been being crop dusted or, misted through the air. There's so many different things that cause cancer or make you terminally ill, cause tumors. And Western medicine does not teach MDs anything about any of that. In fact, it's counteractive. It teaches them just to use big pharma. If you have these symptoms, here, take this. Your insurance will cover 80% of it. No big deal,
Yeah.
What if it costs $5,000 or $10,000 a month and it covers 80%, and then you're every month picking up the tab for that 20%? Does that seem right to you?
No.
So when you can't afford it, you end up getting ill and sick and just dying off. And this happens more common than not. So
Yeah, I like to see people getting back into the more holistic medicines and plants, you know.
yeah,
I like seeing
apothecary
that.
is that's how I've been my whole life. I'm not really into you know, pharmaceuticals and things of that nature. I try to stay natural.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Well, like I was saying at the beginning, you know, we're going off script today. And there were some things that I was thinking about just the other day and kind of trying to motivate people, you know, and it's making me think of what other people are thinking about, you know, and I sat back and I thought about, okay, the Vietnam War and how, you know, what I've heard, there was some false flags that started that whole conflict. And then you go down the line, there was Benghazi, you know, that we all watched on TV with Hillary Clinton and those, you know, they're running guns through Benghazi in Africa, you know, selling guns to our enemies, basically, you know, and everybody knows about this, you know, and then you have Desert Storm and you have George Bush talking about weapons of mass destruction and everyone's seen that, you know, you see it and it was all bullshit. So then you come in a little more modern times, you know, and we have the World Trade Centers come down. And we could spend a week talking straight about that because if anybody believes that two concrete and steel buildings came down because of a little fire, they need checked up from the neck up. You know, it's just sad. And then after that, we have C-19. And another spell. I don't understand how people, you know, so basically when I listed those things and I'm thinking about them, I was kind of like I wanted to ask you or some of the people maybe in the comments, what is it going to take before you wake up? Before the people decide, hey, something is not right here. I mean, it's pretty obvious. What do you think? What's it going to take?
well, I just tell you like my old man told me: believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. You know,
Yeah.
that'll save you a lot of headaches, and for the most part, it's kept me out of a lot of trouble and kept me clean. So I don't believe in any of that. I mean, obviously, I have a little bit of medical stuff under my belt. I know that spike proteins are not good to put in your system. Nanoparticulates are not good to put in your system. And then upon further research, because I have access to some things that the public probably won't be able to touch for at least 100 years after this administration's dead, then it'll come out. That seems to be the name of the game. Wait until everybody dies off so you can't hold them accountable.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I learned all that stuff in physiology and anatomy. You can look in Physiology and Anatomy 1 and 2. That should tell you everything you need to know about the BS with the CV-19 nonsense. They're slowly working their way up to getting the truth out. We know other countries have already come out with their research. And as far as all the other conflicts,
I guess my issue with it is just when it came out, how many people actually drank that Kool-Aid,
it was ridiculous.
Without question.
It was completely ridiculous. The people are just I'm going to go ahead and say it. I might get shadow banned for it, but people are very liberally indoctrinated. I get it, but there's no excuse for that. Either or you do the research and you find out. You don't just silence a body of people because they're not going along with the narrative. and then shut down social media anytime somebody speaks the truth. Or, there are so many specialists. They got called to go to some special summit in Ukraine, and a lot of them had to do with virology or different types of biology and stuff like that, all the different specialties in science pertaining to outbreaks, and finding ground zero. And so they get called to the summit, and conveniently about 130 of them went down in a plane crash heading to Ukraine. Conveniently, this place where there's so much corruption and embezzlement going on. I wouldn't have went as soon as they said Ukraine. I'd have been like, oh,
Yeah.
know how I feel about that. I'm just
Good luck.
I'm just gonna stay at home. So, but yeah, that happened right in the midst of all this, and so they took out all of the the big wig specialists, anybody and everybody who was somebody in that field, and there was only a few left after them.
Well,
That
when I seen and heard people trying to make me to believe that a little surgical mask was going to stop viruses and stuff, and I was just like, what in the hell is wrong with you people? And they made us put them on at work, but you're taking them off. You're I don't know, man.
some of these comments
It's just so crazy. It is so crazy. They accepted people wearing handkerchiefs as bandanas, so now that stopped COVID.
I was walking around with panties on my head for a little while there just to be cute about it, but I don't think they really like that too much. Yeah, I agree. With Samantha, and what was this ogre? He says, I can't stand cops. Well, I can't stand a lot of them, but I don't agree with swatting. Just responding to some of these comments.
Yeah.
And yes, sir, some people will never wake up. They will continue drinking the Kool-Aid, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're here for, is to, put little nuggets of truth out. And, that goes along with our interfacing with the contractors that be in our area. They're guests on our jurisdiction.
Yeah. We're definitely out here, trying our best, in our respected counties here in Ohio. And, we just want more people to get involved, join their county assemblies, their unincorporated county assemblies, and help out. If you're looking to become a sheriff or something, get a hold of us.
I see Juan Perry says in court it's all contract. Well, it's contract and commercial. You got your admiralty and maritime side. Sometimes they'll switch back and forth if you know something about something. A lot of times when you talk about UCC or UCMJ, they just, if it doesn't make them uncomfortable squirming in their seat, a lot of times they'll just act like they don't know what you're talking about. A plausible deniability clause. So just answer a couple of those type of questions.
So, Adam, for one of the other topics I wrote down was, the CEO of this foreign corporation, the U.S. Inc., their CEO, Donald Trump, he's been out saying, and I've seen a lot of people online talking about this new republic that he's thinking about or whatever.
Well, that already happened back in 2016. He pushed it with that last bankruptcy that he put that, foreign corporation in, known as United States. And by 2019, they were completely dissolved, all municipalities across the country, which is why I can't comprehend why in the hell are they still open doing business on my county.
Yeah, they're here too. Bankrupt.
And I'm not going to put up with too much more of it.
Well, I guess what I was saying, what I was referring to is more of the people and how they think about this. They think that one of our subcontractors, a CEO of a foreign corporation acting as their government, can just change the name from US Inc. or whatever to the Republic Inc., the New Republic, whatever he named it. They act like he can just change the name and all of a sudden it's American.
Well, there's de jure, which is our constitutional republic, and then there's de facto, which is created by man and it's commercial in nature. So, by the time this stuff trickles down and the people actually wake up, it's probably going to be too late, but, we'll make our last ditch efforts to inform people, as many people as we can, because eventually what's going to happen is it's right now we're in a transition phase, where they're trying to usurp upon us again with this new republic idea.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that is not our constitutional republic. That is still in the background. It's still operating. And guess what? We're here reconstructing it because the Reconstruction Act of 1866 never happened. So I know they like to write about it and teach about it in history books, but it just didn't happen the way that people think it did.
Yeah.
It was basically where our country was taken away from us, along with our rights, and was unlawfully converted into just a bunch of nonsense. Like I said, everything that's been being done is usually through some type of act of legislation for whoever the highest bidder is, to offer them bills and ideas for what goes in the bills. And, those are just the type of backdoor deals that go on all the time.
Yeah. Well, my son, he's been asking me some questions about that, and I really don't have the answer for him yet. But I got to do deep dives into these subjects that we're talking about, learn a little more for myself, But with Trump, it seems like he has this fascination with Israel too. So and I've seen plenty of people around my county with Israeli flags, and I'm just like, what is going on? What is wrong with the populace here? What do you think about that? What do you think the plan with Israel is?
Well, I try not to really get into that stuff. I'm not in that uniform anymore. I'm not jumping out of helicopters or planes. I'm not doing any of that type of stuff. So personally, I try to focus on, what can I research to make a difference here and now? All that other stuff, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to place people to do all their little espionage nonsense. It's been going on for 300 years. Nothing's changed. So same thing with, their corporate policy enforcement, 300 years of bull. And, it started out with slavery, and guess what? When we were commercialized and unlawfully converted into 14th Amendment citizens, technically that's a form of peonage, which was supposedly abolished, by the way. And we're still very much indebted and treated as debtors in this debtor system. And I'll tell you what, I'm not a debtor, I'm not an obligor, I'm not any of that terminology. And I have a right to tell you to screw off if you call me those things, because, well, I take that as an insult. Everybody should take those words as an insult, because it's enslaving you and trapping you into their commercial realm.
Yeah.
And we don't belong there. So, we can get into that 14th Amendment stuff all day long. I've said it for, probably 22 years now. Hey, something's wrong with that. The congressional record says this. Why did they just push it through? Well, it's the same thing with all of our state constitutions across the country. We had our original ones that were ratified by the people. And then at some point within 50 to 100 years after the fact, a group of people got together that were not representing the people, and they just did whatever they wanted to do and rewrote things to commercialize it. And then it was never ratified by the people. So we have all these constitutions for all the states that are not, they're not technically ratified by the people, just like the majority of their statutory civil stuff.
Yeah.
So,
So that's what I was talking to my son about the pretty much. He asked about the 14th Amendment, and I said, it's funny that you can get on the Congressional Globe or wherever and look at exactly what these people were saying in Congress back in the 1800s.
Yeah, I got two of them behind. Well, I've got about 10 years worth of them.
Yeah, and right in there, black and white, it was never ratified. There wasn't enough states to make the 14th Amendment law.
No, you're supposed to have 2/3,
Yeah.
right? Well, we had like what, 2?
Yeah, there wasn't many.
And there was supposedly, I think, 7 or 8 at the time. And a bunch of them ended up backing away because they realized what was going on. So there's only technically 2 on the record. That's not 2/3. So here we are talking about it all these years later. And, we're going to keep talking about it because people aren't comprehending. They believe the public education system is telling them the truth. All these people that have education degrees think they're telling the truth. I have friends who are teachers, by the way, and even some of them are drawing blanks. They're like, well, I don't know. I'm conflicted. I'm like, here, borrow these books. Just everything that I found, was highlighted. Go ahead and peruse. And let me know in a couple months. Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah, I think it was last week or last video, there was I got some comments, some feedback from people in it's probably on Facebook or something. And I'm not sure they're understanding that we are not corporate sheriffs, They think that we are just new sheriffs. And no, we are definitely not incorporated, and we're not in that jurisdiction. They work for a corporation. We work for the people,
Right.
unincorporated in our counties in the soil jurisdiction.
Then we're lawfully elected, and we use silver 5-point stars. We don't have bulbuses on top of the star edges. That's historically correct. And, we do have arresting power. We choose to be peacekeepers because that is technically what we are for the people. But at the same time, whenever these corporate actors or these policy enforcement guys usurp on Americans' rights, that's when we have to step in. And the majority of the time, we stay busy. We're constantly investigating stuff. We have a plethora of things that are in front of us that we hear about daily, weekly. It adds up. And while we're interfacing and working our way through the spider webs in their system, trying to get out there and do things honorably, we do hit a lot of walls and a lot of roadblocks and a lot of opposition. We anticipate that. Andrew and I are very capable of articulating what message it is that the commercial side needs to know. They shouldn't fear us, but if they have these attitudes that they're over us, well, they're just simply mistaken.
Yeah, they're just used to, running roughshod. I guess no one really ever thought about the difference between, they're basically British territorial citizens, and.
Well, they're foreign agents.
Yeah.
Well, we know that there are thousands and thousands of policy enforcement guys across the country that don't even have a FARA on record. Doesn't matter. That just means that, they're not lawfully in their position and that anybody they arrest or, throttle or whatever, they are liable and accountable. It's easier to get after them at that point. If you can do your request and figure out that they don't have their FARA on record, that's going to be a bad day for them because they're foreign agents. They're supposed to register that, and a copy's supposed to go to the DOJ, who's supposed to hold all their FARAs because they are foreign agents for a foreign corporation or for other countries.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed at how many politicians have dual and triple allegiances to other countries, such as Israel.
They're sitting in D.C. and nobody cares.
Well, I know probably at least half of them, if not more. I'm being nice. They have allegiances to Israel, and I think some of that has to do with these lists that everybody wants to get a hold of. And it's one of them type of situations where if that list did come out, and there are people that know names on the list. There's Ghislaine. She knows, but she's using that as leverage, which is a smart move. But at the same time, if that information came out, how quickly would this country collapse? How quickly would it fold? I mean, we already just talked about, the municipalities across the country being completely dissolved. I'm not talking about Clearfield Doctrine. That was a totally different thing. They were dissolved again because what these guys do is, they get put into these bankruptcies and they get dissolved, and then new principals pop up with new LLCs or LLPs in their name, and then it just business as usual. Okay, we got rid of the last people, and all they are is their LLCs or their businesses. That's it.
Yeah. You remember those those brothers that brought a case to the Supreme Court about
Brunson brothers, Lloyd Brunson.
Brunson brothers, yeah.
I
just seen them in the on some online stuff again. I think that case is still active. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it, but that would be a big one. That involves most of them people in DC. And how do you get this, Supreme Court to rule on something like that?
Well, I think they were waiting for the J6 stuff to be dealt with. Clarence Thomas, I believe, did not want that to be public. He wanted to hold on to the decision until later on. Well, Trump's already in office, so I don't know why it hadn't came out yet. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. I just don't know what the holdup is.
Yeah.
It's how many months past the fact of him being in office, and we were promised these things, and it seems like there's a whole lot of reneging going on. Not that there's a lot of things where they did keep their word and they did do that, but we're getting past the we're past 180 days. So I mean, there should be a lot of this stuff coming out already. I don't know why they're waiting so long.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I wanted to before we take off here, I wanted to get back into telling everybody. I told everybody last week the trifolds. Get these out. They will help.
You can get these trifolds at claimyourinheritance.info. As you see across the bottom of the screen, go print your own out. We're limited. We have, obviously ours from our office, but
yeah, right on,
pretty nice.
Right on back. I just put you can get yourself a QR code and get it to one of your email addresses or the sheriff's. If you have a sheriff, if you have an American sheriff in your county, have it go to his email so that you can start recruiting some more people, more Americans.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but and also, people, like you said, claimyourheritance.info, and check out, if there's any LEOs, Leos, sheriffs, check out the pktfnews.org. It can help you out a lot. There's a lot of information on there for you.
I'm going to say 85%. It's probably more 88, 89% dual citizens in Congress, dual allegiances. I'm not talking about Barry or, Michael or, we know that they belong to other places.
Yeah.
What about Louise? Louise has trifolds that need to be fixed.
What was that?
Did I miss that Louise needs to fix something on her trifolds, or?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I seen Samantha posted something in the comments. I'm not sure. I think she said that she was going to fix something a couple weeks back in a meeting, but I can't recall right now.
Yeah.
But, a lot of these are on editable forms, so you can go in there and edit whatever you need to edit. That's the nice part about them.
Yeah. Fix them up yourself, a little self-governance. Do it yourself.
Oh, yeah, she's right. She says that the front side prints out normal, but it's the inside that's upside down. I do believe that you can rotate those. with it, those are, if you have like Google Docs or something like that, you should be able to drop something like that in there and just rotate it. Maybe throw them in Office Libre or 365. Usually you can throw stuff like that in there and just, rotate it around. It's pretty easy.
Yep.
Is there any topics anybody wants us to touch on? We have so many different things. We try to just go with the flow for the most part. We don't want to seem like a bunch of talking parrots and, redundancy, but, we're here to inform you, the people. So if you have something that you want us to touch on, by all means, put it in the comments, reach out to us, and, we'll definitely get after that stuff.
Yeah, I just want to see more people
Engaged.
working on the solutions rather than just repeating the problems. Like I said, all the stuff that I see on social media is, it's good information for people to see, but there's got to be a way to overcome it. And one of the only ways is to change your political status, join your assembly, start working on your courts. Get your courts running, get you a sheriff.
Mm-hmm. She's absolutely right. I do believe that Gen X is going to be the ones that make the difference here. We do have a lot of millennials that are coming on board and taking heed to what we're saying and asking lots of questions. We have quite a few people in their 20s, mid to late 20s, and
they're mad.
Engaged.
They're mad. They're getting they're getting screwed over.
Well,
these kids are talking about houses, and they're talking about, back when we were younger, you get a real nice house for $100,000, $150,000. That's nothing nowadays. You can't get nothing for that.
Yeah. Well, it's, a lot of what's going on with this inflation is really they're just, they're fleecing the people, because a lot of this is just manufactured, higher marginalized amounts, like we were just talking about earlier. The median tax is somewhere between 0.92 and 1.02. That's the average. But there's a lot of areas. The area I live in is like 1.78, 1.73, somewhere in there. Goes back and forth. But that's significantly higher, and I think they do that on purpose because they're trying to keep a certain demographic of people out from purchasing. Plus the problem, with the property taxes and the values of everything, with that false inflation, made all these homes around here that, they would have been in the, 150s, 160s, well over $200,000 now. And they're trying to keep a certain group of people out, and or just not able to afford. And then we got limited, real estate. There's not a lot of stuff on the market because people don't want to leave if they already got a loan, because how difficult it is to get financed for that type of money. And then they got to go through all that again based off the same income that probably got them the loan to begin with. And the numbers aren't going to go in their favor. So it's just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, it's about as bad as these cities thinking they own land. The incorporated city is.
How can something that only exists on a piece of paper own real property? I've been saying this for 20 some years.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. There's more than meets the eye. Put your nose in some books. That's where they hide all of the facts and the truth. People just don't like to read and do the research. And, then they come on assembly meetings complaining about, where's everybody going? Why is nobody showing up? Well, you pissed everybody off because we're sick of having to tell you what we read because you won't read for yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry,
Yeah, self-governing isn't for everybody, So there's always going to be that C jurisdiction in U.S. citizens. But, if you want to be free and have your rights,
right,
you got to change your political status and get back to being American again,
Is it the District of Columbia, Samantha, or is it the District of America? because I could have swore that, when the Gulf of Mexico was changed to the Gulf of America, DC was supposedly changed too at that time, but I haven't seen, if that actually is what's on paper. I don't know. I mean, Trump.
I wouldn't doubt it. It makes it sound better instead of having a foreign plot of land in the middle of your country.
Oh, to touch on that, it's kind of what's going on, what we're witnessing, as they come to their end game, the end result of draining the swamp in DC. That's why they got, people federalized their guard members there helping out with their DC police. They all were sworn in by Pam Bondi. And basically that's severing the ties from the City of London and the Vatican. That's what's going on right now. And they're cleaning up the streets there. I've never seen DC so clean. Every time I've ever gone there, I was pissed off that I even had to drive down some of them dirty streets. You would think that they'd be in the capital,
not to offend anybody from DC, but man, there used to be a lot of bums in the city, walking around.
Yeah.
At night it'd get crazy.
Yeah, she might just be a blonde Israeli, but we hope to. I know I've sent a few notices her way and to some other constituents of hers in DC. I don't know if she got them, but I do have her email. I have quite a few other people's email addresses over that way. I like to, from time to time, send things that are just like, hey, don't forget about Ohio. We got a lot of stuff to clean up here. And, as is with every other state, outside of the District of Columbia, we got a lot of work to do. And, these guys claim that they're here to fix the problems, but I don't see them fixing the problems. I see more things being commercialized. I see people trying to create new republics that are commercialized. And this stuff's been going on for far too long. And we do have a constitutional republic and people here, who are beginning to reoccupy these offices that have been vacant for so long. And they just need to know that, and take heed to it.
I agree. Well, Adam, we're pulling up on about an hour. That went flying by pretty quick. So I think it's going to be time we take off, huh?
Yeah, sure. Welcome to jump on anytime.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Remember to check it out, Restore the Republic on YouTube. Adam, your channel on Rumble is?
The Reeves Talk Shop 44.
The Reeves Talk Shop 44 on Rumble. Check it out. All right, people. We are out of here. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Get the message out. Saturday.
Yeah.
Go out and have a drink. American.
Safely.
Hey, Adam, thanks for stopping by again. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime, Andrew.
All right. We'll see everybody. We will see everybody later.